Hi, my name is Akunjit Kaur. I am 16 years old and I am the UK's Young Ambassador for Inspire Girls. I'm here with today Ola, the founder of All Things Money, who's an incredible role model to look up to. Ola, as the founder of All Things Money, you have built a comprehensive platform to teach finance online. Could you share the story behind how you've started this venture on your own?
So I started All Things Money now back in 2020 when I had just graduated from university. So yeah, I was originally meant to move to Australia, which sadly couldn't go ahead because of COVID. So yeah, during that time, I taught myself how to invest in the stock market. And from doing that, I taught some of my friends how to do the same. And yeah, I thought if I could teach some of my friends to invest, I really want to teach young adults how to do the same. So yes, I took to Instagram to start sharing money tips. And yeah, now it's my full-time job.
Starting your own business obviously is a lot to take in.
Mhm.
Coming in, what is some of the biggest challenges you have to overcome, especially being online?
Good question. I think sometimes when it comes to running your own business, it's having that constant stream of ideas, which sometimes can be really hard. So I've been running All Things Money for 4 years now, so it can be quite hard to try and think of fresh new ideas sometimes. So I think that's a big challenge. And also sometimes, comparing yourself to others online, I'm sure other people get it as well, whether or not they're a business owner, in terms of it's very easy to go online, compare yourself to other people that are doing really well or what you think might look like they're doing well. And so, yeah, I think it's really important that when running a business, it's really important to try and not compare yourself to others.
People are not able to start something new, and you created like impact growth resources for like students like me, especially from like backgrounds that I've not particularly teach this about. So how do you like maintain the balance to provide between valuable resources and also sustain a suitable business model at the same time?
So I think when it comes to obviously sharing personal finance guidance and tips online, I do it because I love it and I really want to educate the next generation to help kind of navigate the next stage of their lives when it comes to managing their finances effectively. But obviously, sharing content online for free doesn't pay the bills. So I think it's about working out what you love doing and also what can help you like generate revenue as well. So it's kind of like looking outside of how you can make business income. So that would be maybe looking at working with companies or brands that can help you on this mission to continue going on.
That is such good advice for like people that don't know anything about, especially about influencing, because it's like a really big thing now, and a
Mm.
lot of people want to go through digitally. But your platform seems to cater to a wider audience. And how do you ensure your content remains accessible to everybody, and also relatable to like various of backgrounds and even financial literacy levels?
Yeah, cool. So I think a lot of the information that's shared about finance and the news about finance can be really, really hard to understand sometimes, maybe a bit boring to read. So yeah, for me, I make sure I read the news every single day. I make sure I'm updated with the news and trends, and making sure I understand it enough so I can then break it down to make sure it's accessible. I think it's really important to engage young people, especially by making it accessible maybe a bit more catching to the eye that some newspapers might not be able to do. So yeah, I think it's really important about for me making sure I'm up to date and also making sure I understand it enough to be able to then relay the information in simple terms.
If your content, one, it is very aesthetically pleasing to look at. It's just
Mhm.
looking at your Instagram posts. But how do you like? I get that you do like asking how's your day going to actually connect with your audience, all of that. So how do you actually keep it so one it stays relevant all through the 4 years? Because obviously in the last 4 years, a lot has changed and
Yes.
strategy, the way people actually the algorithm works. So how do you like keep it up to date and not fall behind?
Good question. So, yeah, I'm very rigid with how my content comes across. I've got a very strong brand that I kind of like to maintain. But I guess it's that balance of understanding what the trends are on social media and also making sure it's still relevant to your brand. So, for me, it's sometimes it'd be really hard to try and make personal finance content go viral, but it's about what will do well with these algorithms, what will engage my audience as well, because my audience 4 years ago is very different to what my audience is now, and our needs and wants are very different too. So it's just making sure I'm currently aware of what my followers want and also what will do well on these social media platforms too.
Also, um, creating such large finance content. Obviously, there's in your experience, what are some misconceptions that people manage about finance, and how do you like aim to like disregard all of them with all things money?
Good question. I think one of the biggest myths I hear is that budgeting is really boring and very difficult to get started with. So that's really one of the biggest things I kind of try to dispel when it comes to managing your finances, because without a budget, it's pretty much impossible to manage your finances. So I'm trying to make budgeting sound a little bit funner, a little bit cooler, I say. But yeah, just making sure that people are aware that anyone can budget, and it doesn't have to be a case of cutting out everything you enjoy. I think having a budget just allows you to see what you can afford to spend your money on on the things you love. And I think it's about changing that and making people aware of that kind of perspective. And then I guess another misconception that I'm trying to dispel as well is that investing is for the rich. So I started investing just as I came out of university. And I wasn't a millionaire, but a lot of people like to think that you have to be really rich to kind of get investing in the stock market, which again is another huge myth that I'm trying to dispel through the content I share online.
I totally understand that. As someone that's very keen on investing, as soon as I turn 18, just 2 more years to go, and I'll be ready. Um, but yeah, I see that quite a lot online, like, oh, this is how the rich stay rich, or even like in texts on sociological books, they'll mention investing, but not for the poor is accessible. But how do you use a platform to one visibly inspire girls and like pursue a career in finance? Because I obviously understand finance is very male dominated, and
Mhm.
entrepreneurship is quite, people see as like quite difficult, and it's also so get hard to actually get with it. But
Yeah.
how do you like do it?
Yeah, good question. I think for me, when I very first started All Things Money, I wanted my content to be relevant for everyone. But I think being a young Black female has allowed me to hopefully inspire the next generation of women that, or girls that want to kind of go into the one entrepreneurial space, content creation space, and also just wanting to do what I kind of do. I think from the back of just being a young woman, I've realized how a large majority of my followers are now women, because I think I'm just that face that obviously is female, quite feminine, that hopefully relates to a lot of people that now follow me. So yeah, I guess trying to be visible, I think is really important, especially my content, so people are aware of who's behind the account, because yes, I know it's quite aesthetically pleasing, but I want to make sure that people know that it's a woman behind, a young woman that's behind this account, hopefully trying to inspire the next generation and help them become more empowered with their finances too.
I want to ask a question, especially being like a young Black woman behind a large social media following. Is there any time that you might face like negative comments or people say stuff to you that shouldn't be said in real
Mm.
life?
Question. So fortunately, I haven't had content go viral to the space to the as far as getting attracting people that aren't interested in my content. I've been quite lucky that I've been quite secure in that. But that being said, whenever I do maybe pitch to other organizations, sometimes I might see me as an incompetent female, maybe because I'm slightly younger, maybe because I'm a woman, because like we know the finance space is quite a heavily male dominated industry. So yeah, sometimes I have kind of had a bit of resistance in terms of what my knowledge and capabilities are, whether that's because I'm woman, a female, like young female, I don't know. But yeah, I have kind of had a bit of resistance, but luckily no nasty comments online.
I understand like when people think you're not competent, especially
Mm-hmm.
as a female, but so obviously there must be something that motivated you to do all of this, the wonderful journey that you've been on. Could you share a quote, a movie, or a book that inspired you young girl to continue to motivate you on your journey as an entrepreneur?
So I guess the very first book that motivated me to start this kind of mission was a book called Money a User's Guide by Laura Waitley. And I remember reading this book and I thought I was quite savvy with my finances until I read that whole book and realized I actually don't know anything about anything beyond budgeting and saving. So that kind of opened my eyes up into how little we're taught about money. And then I guess another book that I think is really, really motivational is a book called Good Life, Good Vibes. Sorry, I went completely blank there. But yeah, that's another really good book to kind of, it allows you to kind of work out how important it is to kind of look after your mental state, how to make sure you attract good vibrations as well. Because I think sometimes when you're running a business, especially when you're on your own, it's very easy to let negative thoughts, intrusive thoughts kind of get you down. And so it's really, this book is really good at motivating you to kind of remember why you do what you do, how to protect your own energy, how to set healthy boundaries as well, which again can be quite hard sometimes when running a business. So yeah, I think those are two books that I really love and would recommend people read.
I understand you do quite a lot of events. Do you think people on a basis should, yes, read more books about like other stuff, but is there anything else you recommend, like audio-wise, like your podcast is very lovely to listen to?
Oh, thank you. So yeah, I would say, yeah, my like just being proactive when it comes to managing your finances and learning more about the world of personal finance, because it's a lot less boring when you think about it, and teach yourself about how you can become richer, wealthier. I think that's really important. All of us want that, so we need to educate on how we can become it. So yeah, I think, yeah, tuning into like my podcast, for example, getting your going into places where people are actively talking about money, because money again is such a big taboo in the UK. It's important we find our space and place in a space where people are comfortably talking about money, remove that kind of tabooness around the topic as well, and also just be able to connect and network with like-minded people. I think it's really important that you do so too.
So growing up, who did you have a role model? And if so, why?
Oh, I think my biggest role model is probably my mum, as cliche as that sounds, but I've seen her be so resilient growing up. I think it's really important that resilience, especially every single day as a woman. I think it's really important that you are able to be tough skinned, you're resilient, you're motivated, and might seeing those traits in my mum has really inspired me to become the woman I am today. And also just seeing what she's overcome, I think it's really incredible to see that there are people, despite what adversity they kind of go through, are able to kind of just overcome that and still tackle everyday life. So yeah, my mum is definitely one of my biggest role models.
That's so sweet to actually hear. I also had my mom as my role model for quite a long time, especially to how much she has done for me is incredible as a mother. But how do you like encourage young girls or young women to embrace like their unique strengths and talents, especially in an industry where they might feel outnumbered or overvalued in like a male-dominated space?
Question. I think you have to start with your why. I think unless your why is strong enough, then you won't want to overcome the barriers you'll face. So I think it's really important that you understand why you want to do what you're doing, and every day you have to remind yourself of what that is. Because again, like I said, there'll be barriers that you have to come. There'll be days where you don't want to do it anymore. So again, it's really important you come back to your why. And I guess I deliver lots of talks, lots of workshops now, and hopefully me just sharing my story as a young woman inspires girls that want to do the same. And hopefully I'm a relatable face that a lot of people can kind of listen to and hopefully believe that they can do the same thing as well. Because if I can do it, I always think anyone else can, because I'm genuinely nothing out of the box special. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, hopefully I can inspire girls to do what they want to do.
Yes, that is so lovely to hear. Also, I don't feel like you should undermine yourself. Like you have accomplished so much, especially at a young age. To start one influencing, putting yourself out there is very difficult. Also, what like advice would you give like people that are just trying to get started on social media or trying to build a platform or a brand around it?
Oh, so I think my number one biggest tip is to honestly just start. I think a lot of us put off what we want to do because we're scared of like someone judging us, maybe we don't feel ready enough. But honestly, the minute you start, that's where you can then make your improvements. So I started All Things Money just from Instagram, right? And it took me 5 hours to post my very first post because I was too scared. And this was in the height of lockdown, and my friend was like, Olive, you don't post this, I'm gonna come down and post it for you. So yeah, she kind of forced me into posting, and I'm so glad she did, because if I hadn't have posted then All Things Money and where I'm at today would never exist. So yeah, my biggest tip is to honestly just start, and they can make the tweaks accordingly afterwards.
So also mentioning that your friend was the one who forced you into doing it. Do you think it's very important to actually have a support system around you, especially if you're going like on a big project?
Yeah, definitely. I think if it wasn't for like my friends, family, mentors around me, then I definitely would have given up a long time ago. So I think it's really important that you surround yourself with people that believe your mission, that are able to kind of give you the motivation that you need some days, because honestly, running a business is so hard. There'll be days where I love it, there'll be days where I hate it. So on the days where you hate it, it's really important that you are surrounded by people that can really big you up and can motivate you as much as they can. So yeah, I think your social circle is so important. And I think, sometimes we place a really big value on friendships when we're younger, and sometimes the friends we think are friends might not necessarily be the right people. So it's really important that you are just aware of that. And yeah, I think just making sure you're surrounded by positive people is really important.
Honestly, that if someone had given me that advice a few years ago, I would have been like, no, what are you on about? But now, like everything, I'm like, that is so true. Like having a social circle is so important. But also, you're managing a business by yourself, and
Mhm.
which can be very difficult. So how do you prioritize self-care and prevent burnout for while managing all things money?
I invest quite a lot of money into my gym at the moment. It's not the cheapest gym membership out there, but I think that's one thing I've invested in myself, to know that if I need a morning off where I can just use the spa or I can go for a swim, then at least I've got a space that allows me to do that, that's away from work. And because I work from home, sometimes I don't find the house very relaxing because I'm with my phone and with my laptop. So I invest in a space where I can actually be away from those two things. I think that's really important. And then also establishing really healthy boundaries as well. So when I first went full-time self-employed, there was definitely days where I'd start my emails from like 7 a.m. and then would be answering emails at 9 p.m., which is so unhealthy to do. So now I've set clear boundaries of what my working schedule looks like. When can people contact me? I make it very clear that I'm basically out of bounds after 5 p.m. So yeah, just establishing those really healthy boundaries, which I know at first can be quite scary, but I think it's really important going forwards, and it helps you build really strong relationships with the people that you work with too, because they understand where you're at.
Especially when you talk about working with people, boundaries is something that I had to learn the hard way, especially as a young female. But how would you say, like, sometimes you don't want to say stuff that comes off as rude when working with people, and you don't want them to perceive you in a certain light. So how
Mhm.
would you like tell someone to tackle it? Like, if someone has treated you badly, how would you be like, you shouldn't go back to the same person, even though they might be presenting you with uh, a better opportunity, but however, are you ignore the past decisions that they've made?
Good question. I think it's about being honest with that person. So if you do believe you can maybe work with them again, then I think it's really important to share and be honest about how you felt about them previously treating you. If you don't, then nothing will change in the future. So it's either being clear and honest with that person if you want to work with them again, but also there's so many other opportunities that will come your way. So if you feel like that person treated you really badly, you've just got to trust in the fact that better opportunities will come your way, and you don't need to rely on that one person. It can be very hard, especially if you've got bills to pay. But I do believe that things always work out in the end. And yeah, if that person that you might have previously worked with wasn't great, didn't treat you well, didn't maybe pay you on time, there's definitely better people out there.
You've established yourself as a business. Is there certain ways that people definitely contact you, and some ways that definitely you should not be contacted through?
I think it depends on the person that's reaching out to you and what they want. For me, I've established clear boundaries with a lot of clients now that I probably won't have certain conversations via WhatsApp or like social media platforms. I always ask them to email me directly. One, because clear boundaries, and two, God forbid if I ever needed to go, take someone to court, then I've got an email chain, which is probably more reliable than using maybe like a WhatsApp chain of messages or an Instagram message, for example. But if you feel like something's wrong or something's too good to be true, then in most cases it is, and just avoid it. Like I do get reached out to by loads of different brands that want to work with me on all these different types of products that I've probably never heard of in my life. And I politely decline. Either block them when they're a bit too scammy, but most of the time I politely decline. And there's no harm in saying no. It's just about how you frame that message and make sure you're polite at all costs.
Obviously, for 4 years, and as a young woman, you have lived through a lot of experiences.
Mhm.
Reflecting on your journey, what would you say are some of the milestones that you're most proudest of achieving with either all things money or as an individual?
Oh, good question. I think One of my biggest achievements was being invited to the House of Parliament last year. I think, like I said, being a business owner can be so hard sometimes, and sometimes you don't often feel like your work is being recognised. And I don't do this work to be rewarded, but sometimes it's quite nice to see you've been recognised. So to be able to be called to like a place like the House of Parliament was probably one of my biggest achievements, because I'm just like, wow, like all of these years of hard work has definitely paid off. And yeah, that's just within 4 years. So hopefully more is to come.
Obviously, we're going to stay in this very positive mindset that
Yeah.
you're in your play era right now. Um, Also, as someone who's successful in navigating their journey through internship solo, what is the advice you'll give to others who are considering their own business or entering the world of finance?
I think if you're looking to start your own business, again, you want to find something that you love enough so much that if you were to do it for free, you would still do it. And I say that because when a lot of us want to start a business, we all assume that you're just going to get mega rich overnight, and that doesn't happen. So I think, God forbid, if you started a business and it wasn't doing well, and maybe it's just to start content creation to become an influencer, for example, you need to do it enough, and you need to love it enough that if you didn't get paid, that you'll still continue. Because a lot of people start their businesses and realize that they maybe didn't get paid as much as they thought they would, or maybe they struggled to get clients. But it's really important that consistency and dedication is really, really key when it comes to growing these businesses, because like I said, success isn't overnight. I didn't get my first brand deal until like maybe 10 months down the line, and that just came off a whim. I wasn't creating content to be working with brands. I didn't really set out to be an influencer. So yeah, it's just really important that you love what you do so much that regardless of the outside, you still continue doing it, and hopefully you grow from that.
Yeah, I completely understand that. But also, what advice would you give once somebody wants to start a business, but do you think they should have a whole, like their personal and business identity should be either completely different, or do you think it'll be okay for them to merge it? Like I understand you keep all things money and your personal account very separate,
Mhm.
with very different ways of actually doing it.
Yeah.
So how?
Good question. I think it depends on what you want to do and what your business is. So if you want to go down the route of being a content creator or influencer, and you want your name to be what's out there, then absolutely work on yourself, work on your personal brand. Like I said, I started All Things Money as a separate page because I wanted to share tips. So because most people from my university don't know me as the person that shares tips, I went and created a separate identity because I wanted an organization, and I'm maybe the founder of that organization. So I guess it depends on what you want to do. I know people who are virtual assistants and their name is their business brand, like that's their identity, or you can go down the route of setting your own company up separately to your personal brand. I don't think there's any either wrong or right, but what I've now found that as All Things Money has grown, I've naturally have to grow in my personal brand as well. So I don't think you can escape building your own personal brand, but I don't think it's bad if you have a company and your identity separate.
Obviously, it's really wonderful to hear how you've helped one inspire young girls, especially like just seeing someone out there with that maybe looks like you, has a similar interest as you, is not, you can't see a lot of female representation in the finance industry. It's quite important. And lastly, is there anything that you would like to say to the young girls watching for Inspire Girls?
Good question. I honestly think if you have an idea, I honestly think life's too short not to go for it. Now, I know I'm echoing what I said earlier, but I think sometimes a lot of us really overthink what we can achieve and what we should achieve. Whereas I think if you have an idea that you want to do, I think you should just go ahead and do it. And like I said, surround yourself with people that will push you to also achieve that goal as well. Because again, there'll always be people that don't believe in what you do, or think what you think you want to do is crazy. So making sure you surround yourself with people that will only build you up is so, so important. And yeah, like I said, take that leap because you never know where it will lead you.
And I hope to everybody watching the interview, they had a wonderful time. I certainly had a wonderful time um, listening to your journey and all the advice you've given. As someone who also wants to start their personal brand, it's very lovely to hear like advice um, coming from other women as support. And thank you so much for doing this interview with me. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you so much.